What if the stories we have heard about the world's oldest secrets are only half true? What if, somewhere beneath the dust and roots, a message waits, not just for a scholar, but for you, the one brave enough to search where others have looked away? Imagine standing on a forgotten plain as morning breaks, a stone cold beneath your palm tracing symbols that no language claims and no expert dares to name. Why did those who came before us turn whispers into inscriptions, leaving behind riddles so sophisticated that generations of epigraphers thought them to be clever fakes? As you step into the labyrinthine chambers of Himalayan forts and sunken Mediterranean ruins, you might find scripts that shimmer and fade when the lantern's glow shifts. Tablets so precise that science and myth start to blur. What force painted a mural in a vault beneath the jungle? Colors undimmed by ages of silence. Glyphs that beckon and warn at once. Why does glass, impossibly clear, lie etched with signs no tool should have left, hidden deep in Anatolian tombs untouched by time? If the desert can erase golden letters in a gust of wind, can a rain-soaked cliff in the Andes preserve an outsider's story for 1,000 years longer? How do stone calendars that show no numbers and ciphers written in echoing caverns reshape our sense of what is real? Tonight, you are the explorer. Every artifact, every mystery, waits for the moment you dare to listen and see what secrets remain when all the easy answers are gone. The dawn was an uneasy gray floating low over the plains of La Mancha. My boots crunched through dew-soaked grass as I approached the lonely mound, a pulse of silent anticipation building with every step. Far from the well-worn trails and guidebook marks, the air here was salted with the whisper of wild sage. No power lines intercepted the horizon. The only sign of humanity was an old shepherd's cairn, a pile of forgotten rocks, and at its heart, the slab. The villagers would not speak of this place. When I asked about unusual stones, their eyes slid away and their stories grew thin. Some shrugged and moved back to their chores. The oldest woman in the village said only that the stone had not always been there. She would not tell me more, merely nodding toward the edge of the valley, as if the answer might be found in the land itself. When I asked if anyone had placed it, her silence was as heavy as the dawn mist. I knelt beside the slab and brushed away loose dirt with gloved hands. Its surface was cool and unexpectedly smooth, as if polished by centuries of wind. The carving stood out, sharp and unmistakable, lines curling and looping in ways that felt deliberate and ancient, yet did not match any alphabet I had seen. Some symbols spiraled inward, others twisted back on themselves. I felt less like someone deciphering a language, and more like an intruder reading a letter addressed to no one. Close up, the inscriptions made me uneasy. Some patterns reappeared, but never quite matched, like echoes losing their way. What struck me most were the odd spaces left untouched, deliberate gaps that seemed to swallow the meaning whole. These voids asked as many questions as the marks themselves, inviting 100 interpretations, but never granting comfort and certainty. Were these the spaces where stories faded, or where new secrets waited to be written? My tools came out in a reverent hush. I photographed each section, mapping their features in my journal. The chisel marks, where there were any, were impossibly fine. Not crude. No, these strokes bore the kind of care and patience that only comes from long contemplation. A fine dust clung to my gloves, smelling faintly of chalk and something older, less easy to name. The wind curled around the mound and pressed against my ears. A low, constant murmur, Just for a moment, I wondered if the whispers in the air might not be the distant village. It was then, beneath my fingers, that I felt the most unusual feature. One side of the slab flexed slightly when pressed. Not a break, not a loose stone. Something had been hidden inside the cairn, pressed into the soil just deep enough to be overlooked unless you were searching with intent. My heart raced as I brushed aside more earth, revealing a shard of obsidian embedded carefully at the slab's edge. Its purpose eluded me. Was it a key or some warning left by those who carved the marks? No textbook solved the script. When I sent rubbings and sketches to museums and universities, the replies came back polite and perplexed. Some suggested the carving was modern, a local artist playing a clever trick. Others insisted it was an impossible amalgam, features faintly resembling runes from one era, yet spiraling into patterns known only from Bronze Age relics. Nowhere and everywhere, all in the same line. Like the past, untethered. As shadows lengthened into evening, I watched the stone catch the last of the sun. The symbols seemed to ripple under the fading light. Was it just the play of shadow, or did the characters truly shift when no one looked? The village beyond the rise remained silent, the air thick with unsaid things. I pressed the soil back over the obsidian shard and set my pack for the return. Yet as I walked away, a question trailed me. How many other slabs rest unseen, their stories waiting for a listener, who might finally understand? What secrets could be hidden in a single out-of-place artifact? And what might happen if the next discovery changed everything I thought I knew? The only way to find out was to let the path lead onward, to the next silent witness. The wind in the high Himalayas is never truly silent. It prowls the ancient stones, swirling dust and memories through vacant archways, echoing with tales older than belief. When I first reached the abandoned fortress, I could feel the cold breathing through every crack in the walls. The stones towered before me, their faces worn smooth by centuries of snow and the weight of mountain secrets. My breath misted in the dawn, a pale ghost against the shadows that pooled in every forgotten corner. Local stories spoke of the fort in hushed tones. They said shadows moved through the halls, and sometimes, at sunset, strange music rose from within, notes nobody could trace. Children raced past its gate, dares lost on icy wind, laughter swallowed by fear. The elders would not walk the ruins after dark, convinced something sacred, or something forbidden, lingered beneath the collapsed roof tiles and the root-clasped foundations. My lantern barely pierced the gloom as I descended into the lowest corridor. The walls grew tighter, the air thinner, and each step seemed to draw me farther from the world above. It was there, behind a rotting archway, that the real mystery unveiled itself. A seam in the stone, disguised by moss and frost, parted with a gentle push under my gloved hand. Beyond lay fragments of deep slate, pieces half buried, inscribed with looping marks that flowed like water, undulating in curves and sweeps too purposeful to be chance. The inscriptions shimmered in the lantern light. Their arrangement was unlike any Himalayan script, unfamiliar to Tibetan, Nepali, or Mongolian eyes. The lines seemed to bend with the breath of the fort itself, fading and glowing as wind or light shifted. I reached out, tracing the grooves until my fingertips tingled, as if the stone carried a current all its own. The symbols defied translation. Some bore resemblances to letters I had seen in distant caves on other continents. Others twisted wholly new. The uncertainty fueled my fascination. Was this the work of a traveler lost to history, or a message meant only for the bravest souls who wandered so deep? Dust floated in the lantern's beam, swirling and settling on the slate like a veil. I took photographs, examined the stroke order, and mapped their positions in my journal. My notes grew into questions. The placement aligned not with language, but with the patterns of wind. It felt as if the person who carved here had listened to the fortress itself and transcribed the murmurs into stone. Each mark was precise, intentional, yet reading them offered only riddles, as if the purpose was not to inform but to unsettle the mind. Outside, the wind rose and fell with strange harmony. Birds flew quick and silent past broken battlements, never landing, never singing. I considered the tales. Could the scraps of inscribed slate be warnings, prayers, or the passing thoughts of some forgotten century? The absence of answers began to speak louder than the surviving marks. Sometimes mystery itself becomes a guardian, preserving silence long after words fail to echo. As the lantern flickered, the shadows grew longer, sliding across the stonework as if guided by hidden hands. The slate pieces shifted with the chill, producing faint clicks, almost melodic. I stayed a while, watching for patterns, listening for signs, waiting for the fortress to yield another hint. Even as I packed my gear, their arrangement nagged at the edge of my understanding. A cipher out of reach. A tune heard only once in 1,000 years. Climbing out, the fortress loomed behind, stoic under a thinning sky. The inscriptions had left me with more questions, their forms lingering in memory like the last notes of an unfinished melody. I wondered what secrets cold stone could truly hold, and if this was the end of the mystery or an invitation to dig deeper. Sometimes, a single lost corridor opens into a passage far greater, for in the next leg of my journey, a tablet appeared from the Mediterranean mud, bearing symbols that sang with stories of places long forgotten and new secrets ready to be unearthed. Sea air can carry secrets, and on the shores of an ancient cove, the salt smelled sharper, richer with mystery. Dawn was little more than a suggestion as I picked my way across the ragged spines of marble and sandstone, half swallowed by centuries of silt. Each step released the groan of stone on sand and the hush of old water against the hulls of long-lost ships. I moved slowly, pausing to sift through shattered amphorae and fragments of mosaic. A great storm the night before had dredged up a low-lying patch of the ruins that had been muted by the Mediterranean for as long as memory. The dig team was absent, deterred by the threat of further flooding, but solitude here felt right. It seemed this relic would reveal itself only to a lone watcher, standing quietly as the ocean retreated. Prying away slabs made heavy by centuries, I felt a gentle give under my boots. Wet sand, yielding just enough to uncover what first appeared as a simple tablet. At first glance, it seemed no different from other offerings chipped from the collapsed temples above. Yet, relief carved sharply from its blackened surface caught the rising sun in a way no other stone did. Symbols shimmered, curves and loops unlike Linear B, Phoenician, or any tongue I could name from the region. The language felt at once deliberate and impossibly archaic, as if borrowed from a world that predated even the oldest myths. Under the glare of the morning sun, the tablet thrummed with possibility. The characters arced like the sweep of waves, undulating between familiar letters and strange sigils, so that my eye could never decide what it was seeing. As I turned the slab, the symbols seemed to move, the lines breathing in rhythm with the distant surf. I crouched down, staring until the air shimmered with heat. Did an unknown people leave this marker as a warning, a memorial, or something sacrosanct left for a lost audience? I recorded each mark, my notebook filling with sketches and half-familiar associations. Some marks reminiscent of Cretan glyphs, others twisting into patterns I had only ever seen rendered by the hopeful hands of dreamers seeking Atlantis. The feeling in my chest was a tug of memory and longing, the sense that part of the puzzle was present, but forever cloaked by time and the tides. Could this tablet be an echo from the legendary sunken city, or the clever work of a later people inspired by the same longing for lost origins? Waves broke closer on the exposed rocks as the tide began to return. I wondered how many times this tablet had been buried, unearthed, and then lost again to the Mediterranean's slow, endless breathing. Why did the glyphs appear to hum, a resonance that could almost be felt, if not quite heard? The locals had warned of strange lights over the bay, and sometimes, during the hour before dawn, old fishermen muttered of songs barely audible beneath the roar of the surf. The tablet resisted translation. My tools registered no trace of modern fabrication, no weathering inconsistent with its apparent age, and no marks from anything but patient, ancient hands. Yet the symbols refused to yield their meaning or intent. There was a sense that the message did not need to be fully solved, that its purpose might be to outlast understanding altogether. Packing the tablet into a padded case, I watched the sea overtake the ruins again, waves sweeping my footprints from the wet stones. The past had spoken, but it chose its own language, leaving me with more questions than answers. The echo of Atlantis lingered in my mind as I turned away, determined to follow every thread. Each mystery seemed to lead inexorably to the next, whispering that far beyond this cove, another forgotten vault in the jungles of Tikal would soon reveal painted secrets beneath the shadows of the trees. The air of the Guatemalan jungle quivers with expectation, even at first light. On the edge of Tikal, the trees lean together, their branches woven like secrets above an ancient city. As I trekked deeper, every step was met by the throb of insects, the distant call of howler monkeys, and the soft hush of rain from leaves, already damp with the promise of discovery. Shadows stretched across the ruins, brushing against carved stones and pyramids that watched silently as time spun onward. The vault itself was tucked low beneath the tangled roots of a ceibo tree, its entrance half concealed by centuries of soil and vines. My hands parted the green, fingertips tingling as I brushed away the oldest moss. The opening yawned dark and inviting, as if the earth itself exhaled in relief at being found. I slid inside, the world narrowing to the beam of my flashlight and the cloying scent of stone mixed with organic decay. Around me, the vault's walls pressed close, flecked with age and the passing mysteries of vanished generations. As the light played across the chamber, a mural revealed itself, painted scripts swirling across the vault's interior. The colors were vivid, fierce reds and greens and blues, clinging to the plaster as if they refused to fade, even after centuries. These scripts did not match the classic Maya glyphs studied in textbooks. Their geometry twisted in unexpected ways, refusing to fit the conventions of known systems. They pulsed with energy, a sense of motion trapped in pigment on stone. Local legends whispered that outsiders were not meant to see these walls. I felt the weight of those warnings. Every brushstroke suggested a story, but one that was told in riddles. Some symbols seemed to spiral toward a vanishing point. Others looped back on themselves, evoking cycles of time and loss. The mural was alive, a tapestry spun from the edge of understanding. I let my eyes roam, drawn in by images of animals, celestial signs, and fragments of figures, faces peering out in profile, mouths shaped to form words. My journal filled with careful sketches and notes. I analyzed the pigment, noticing minerals uncommon in Maya murals, as if the artists had traveled far to gather their palette. Yet there was something more, a faint shimmer on the wall, flecks of iridescence that caught my light. It was as though meaning waited beyond the physical, suspended between layers of color and shadow. The air grew tense. Behind me, the root-bound doorway seemed to close even tighter, obscuring the world outside. The stories etched into the plaster gripped me, and time fell away. Were these warnings? Myths preserved for those who'd come searching in the aftermath of disaster? The vault did not give answers. It only deepened the questions. My whispers echoed across stone, mixing with the flutter of wings as bats disturbed the dust. Some say the vault is a bridge, a place where memory and forgetting collide. Others believe it is the last haven for those marked by the past, a keeper of vows and promises lost to war, drought, or exile. Standing there, the stories around me felt both unsettling and sacred. I wondered who among the Maya had chosen these images, whose voice lingered in the blue and green silence. As I stepped from the vault, daylight tore at my senses, bright, almost overwhelming. The jungle seemed to shift in response, its sounds surging to fill the void left by the mural's hidden voices. Every relic here is more than artifact and pigment. It is a living silence, a riddle that asks who will listen. I glanced back, knowing the vault's secrets would haunt my steps long after the journey pressed on. Something in the script, a curling glyph near the vault's ceiling, hinted at a code carried far beyond the Americas. Glass in Anatolia, impossibly clear and ancient, would soon reveal its own tale, as if the worlds of old were bound by an invisible thread, looping from one forgotten vault to another. Time settles thick in the heartland of Anatolia, where each dawn reveals bones of forgotten empires rising through fields of wildflowers. I arrived at a windswept ridge, led by rumors of a burial mound that locals said possessed an unnatural clarity. Stories swirled of monarchs who shaped mountains and of crafts lost before the first chisel met marble elsewhere. The wind here bit with a different insistence, and even the birds called more warily, circling overhead but never daring to perch near the mound. I moved quietly, boots pressing the flattened grasses, watching the sun arc over an entrance newly revealed by spring floods. The earth had shifted, and a corner of pale limestone gleamed, a perfect invitation for curiosity and caution. I descended into the tomb, each step echoing against a geometry of walls cut with precision rarely seen in the ancient world. Stale air hung close, yet beneath it was the subtle, unmistakable scent of something different, not just dust or age, but something reflective, almost metallic and living. Laid across the stone at the tomb's center was an object unlike anything in the burial inventory lists. A pane of glass, impossibly clear and undulled by the centuries, caught the slim light slicing in from above. My breath blurred against it, revealing fleeting images, my reflection overlaid on a lattice of delicate scratches drawn in a script neither Greek nor Hittite, nor any language passed down by the Anatolian ancestors. Each letter seemed to float within the glass, as if layered like sediment in a translucent sea. I knelt, heart pounding, unsure if I was trespassing on knowledge not meant for the living. The Codex's inscriptions were so sharp I half expected the surface to cut my gloves. What hands had etched such lines? No known tool could leave marks so precise without cracking first the ancient pane. No forger would dare place such a thing in a tomb left undisturbed for generations. I ran a light along the script, watching it dance through the invisible layers, revealing unreadable texts woven like strands of silk. A closer inspection showed flecks of dust and faint mineral traces suspended between the layers, sealed in a moment older than any living witness. Legends told of glass that could capture souls and hold secrets from the sun, but this was no myth. The objects nearby, a ring, a bronze knife dull with green patina, a bowl filled with dried petals, seemed almost common beside it. Yet their orientation, each facing the Codex, reflected an awareness of its significance. This was not a grave good, but a message, a riddle placed in the dark for the next dawn. Outside, the day stretched on, birds still refusing to settle. I documented the Codex in detail, making sketches and gently tapping its surface, searching for hidden compartments or other clues. No sound escaped except the muted note of glass touched by flesh, a pure resonance that faded into the chamber's emptiness. Every scholar to whom I sent images responded in disbelief. Many suggested a modern origin, insisting that no ancient civilization had the means or reason to create such a thing. As I prepared to leave, I found my eyes lingering on the Codex, tempted to try holding it to the sunlight to see if the script would transform. Had the ancients sent a message into the future, sealed in a medium immune to decay? Or was it all illusion? A work of careful hands with purposes now lost to wind and history. Echoes of the glass lingered in my thoughts as I climbed back into the light, feeling the weight of a secret not yet revealed. The Anatolian tomb had given up only a single page from a library the world did not know existed. My journey pressed onward. In the silence that followed, the memory of a golden script turning to dust beneath desert stone pulled me toward the sands of Egypt, where another inscription waited to be uncovered, only to vanish in a breath of wind. Deserts are always described as lifeless, but beneath the towering pyramids, the air pulses with hidden movement. The sweep of sand, the call of unseen insects, and the restless hope of discovery. In the oldest heart of Egypt, I traced the labyrinth of passageways beneath a pyramid rarely mentioned in guidebooks, led only by half-deciphered maps and the recalled warnings of elders who recalled seeing gold shimmer and fade in the sun. A tunnel branched downward at an impossible angle. Ancient engineers had known things we had forgotten, had carved space where others saw only silence. I ducked beneath a lintel past crumbling masonry that cradled the secrets of centuries. My flashlight barely lit the way, revealing walls that bore only faint, ghostly traces of the ritual murals long since lost. But in a hollow at the deepest point, caught in the sharp curve of ancient stone, a slab glimmered with golden traces smudged over ochre. I dropped to my knees, dust swirling up, cloaking my boots and hands in the same fine powder that had protected the relic from countless seasons of change. The inscription sprawled across the tablet in lines so perfect, so purposeful in their order and confidence, I could feel the message's weight before reading a single mark. Yet no script matched the catalogs in my memory. The glyphs curled and intersected. Some reminded me of Proto-Sinaitic lines, others of nothing ever documented in the sands of Egypt. The slab was fragile, its surface layered with a delicate dust that looked as if a breath could erase it, and perhaps it could. With utmost care, I began documenting the message, sketching each mark in my journal, and taking photographs as the afternoon light pierced the shaft overhead. The shadows of my own hand danced on the worn surface, sometimes blending so closely that I felt as though I was stirring something that wished not to be awakened. A strange gust, cold, at odds with the desert's usual breath, moved through the chamber as I worked. Before my eyes, as if the wind were mindful of what it wanted hidden, fine grains slipped across the gold and ochre. I reached to protect the slab, but in that instant, half of the inscription melted into dust. The gold vanished as if swallowed by time itself. My sketches became the sole memory of what had been there, a tenuous lifeline to a story suddenly made more precious by its loss. I stepped back, strangely moved by the sudden erasure. Was I meant to see only part of the message? Did its creators trust the reader? Or had they always intended the sands to choose what lasted and what faded? I pondered the possibility that knowledge itself can be ephemeral, that the greatest secrets might only reveal themselves for a fleeting moment before becoming legend or myth. Whispers seemed to linger in the vault, a medley of lost voices drifting in eddies through the broken passage. Some question or warning might have survived for a time, engraved in gold, only to be swept away by fate or design. I stood in silence, brushing the last visible glyph with a gloved finger, committing its pattern to memory just as the light began to dwindle and the passage chilled even further. As I emerged into the golden dusk above, the air changed. The world flooded with new warmth, even as I felt the cool trace of the vanished inscription tugging at my thoughts. I wondered what other messages had come and gone beneath these monumental stones. Not every discovery survives untouched, and not every truth waits to be kept. The meaning, I realized, often lies in the very act of searching, of bearing witness to what is almost lost. Yet, somewhere, far above the dunes, battered by rain, another inscription waited. On a basalt cliff in a land of endless storms, a voice carved in recently weathered stone would soon challenge all that I knew about time and memory, urging me deeper into the story the world had only just begun to reveal. On the edge of Lake Titicaca, Isla del Sol emerges from the mist like a legend retold in stone and water. I arrived under a sky that promised rain, boots sinking into rough earth as I climbed a basalt ledge carved by centuries of wind. Legends run like rivers here. Locals whispered of stones that sing in storms and marks that never seem to wear away, no matter how many years pass across the island's slopes. As the first drops fell, the sound of water on rock became a soft symphony, a rhythm that coaxed old secrets out into the open. My fingers traced the surface, searching for the inscription told in distant stories and hesitant half-smiles. Some swore the carving was recent, left by hands unafraid of myth. Others claimed the marks predated empire, older than the stories of the sun-born kings that gave the island its name. Then the inscription appeared in the rain, glistening as if freshly cut. Symbols wound along the basalt, not quite local, not Incan, yet not matching any script found across the ancient Andean nations. Each character felt deliberate, shaped with the confidence of someone who knew the risk of recording messages in stone exposed to endless storms. As I moved closer, the carving shimmered, its grooves catching droplets that danced as the sun tried and failed to pierce the curtain of clouds. I set about documenting the lines. Tools felt clumsy in the wet, but my journal soon filled with sketches. Some letters coiled like river current, others flared into geometric shapes unknown to epigraphers and linguists. The mystery deepened as I realized some glyphs repeated, almost like musical notes. Had these people composed stories meant to echo in rain, heard only by those who braved the elements and stood at the brink of lake and sky? Villagers had long avoided this legend storms, saying that figures carved upon it draw thunder and confuse travelers. Their stories spoke of visitors who vanished, only to reappear changed, as if the stone itself had asked them questions or granted an unspoken knowledge. Was this inscription a warning or a welcome? I watched water pool in the deeper cuts, reflecting skies broken by distant lightning. The rain intensified and my surroundings blurred. It felt as though the entire island was listening, not only through rock and soil, but through the very script etched before me. Each character was at once alien and achingly familiar, as if designed to be read by a mind shaped by centuries of longing. I stood, drenched, trying to tune into the message, an echo not only of history, but of human curiosity. Patience rewarded me. In a lull, I caught sight of a mark that seemed to bridge the gap between this stone writing and the scripts from Mediterranean ruins, hints of connection where none should exist. Could stories and symbols have traveled on winds and boats, whispered among traders in far-flung ports, before being set in mountainous basalt? The thought lingered, a loop that did not close. As dusk crept along the island, the rain softened to a mist. Water traced the inscription, magnifying every uneven edge, every purposeful imperfection. I stepped back, feeling the spell of place, a hush, both peaceful and challenging. Perhaps this message was left for a future not yet imagined, meant to be rewritten by every rainstorm that reshapes the surface, every explorer who listens for answers in the thunder. The rain carvings had spoken, not with definite meaning, but with infinite possibility. My journey pressed on, pulled by the question of purpose and fate. In the next chapter, a labyrinthine cavern would reveal symbols pressed so precisely into ancient clay that even modern scholars wondered whether nature or machine had played its hand. The story was far from over. Each step seemed to deepen the mystery, inviting me further, moving me closer to secrets only echoed in silence. Beneath a landscape worn by ages, I found myself standing at the mouth of a cavern that seemed to inhale every sound. No birds sang over the entrance, no wind stirred the grass nearby. Only the steady drip of water from stone above marked the passage of time here. When I descended, every footfall produced an echo that splintered, folding in on itself as if the cave resented company. Shadows grew thicker the deeper I ventured, cold pressing against my jacket, a silent warning to any traveler who dared go farther than daylight allowed. Inside, the walls arched and curved, following rules unknown to architects, twisting like the lines on old tree roots, opening into chambers that waited in quiet anticipation. I moved through their darkness with my lantern raised, its yellow glow painting the uneven ground in soft gold. Then, in the belly of the earth, the discovery revealed itself, pressed into clay so smooth it almost felt polished, a spiraling script bent in patterns unlike any known language. No tools lay scattered, no footprints suggested recent intrusion, and the silence grew electric, filled with expectation. The carvings defied logic. Symbols edged out in perfect arcs looped around one another, dancing in tight circles that pulled my gaze and would not let go. Their arrangement was so precise that, for a moment, I wondered whether nature or human hands had played their part. Some epigraphers later claimed the marks must have been left by machine, since no chisel could cut such curves into raw clay without cracking the surface. But I was alone, and the only thing to measure was the rising pulse in my chest as I traced each groove. I recorded the cipher with care, sketching each segment and marking their relationships as best I could. The clay flashes caught the lantern, casting small shadows across the intricate patterns like the ticking of clockwork in stone. My notes grew more crowded. Attempts at translation gave way to wild speculation. Some marks resembled diagrams seen in mathematical manuscripts. Others twisted into spirals that suggested music or movement or the path of stars. As I worked, the echoes changed. Each passage of my hand across the carvings seemed to summon a different resonance, a note that lingered just outside the reach of language. It struck me that these marks were designed not merely to be read, but to be felt, to vibrate in spirit, to untangle unspoken mysteries inside whoever dared come close enough to listen. Where did the script begin, and where did it end? Every answer dissolved into new questions, threading a challenge into the very air of the cavern. Curiosity led me deeper, past concave walls that muffled sound and sharpened silence. I remembered local stories, warnings that these caverns could confuse travelers, that time itself swelled and contracted inside their depths. Some villagers said the echoes could speak, retelling events long forgotten by the surface world. My own attempts to interpret the cipher grew more urgent. What if the inscription was not a message at all, but a key, a pattern that could unlock something older still, buried beneath layers of history and stone? Light began to fail, and the chamber's chill deepened. I paused, listening for the last notes of the day. The spirals teased answers, refusing to close the loop, daring me to return and challenge the code again. I exited, mind whirring with possibilities, carrying the silence of the caverns with me like a new language whose meaning lay just out of reach. On the horizon, Angkor awaited. There, beneath twilight and shimmering water, stones would bear inscriptions so lustrous that even the oldest legends questioned their origin. The journey continued, spiraling forward, held together by the patterns half seen and half understood, each step closer to the secrets that waited beneath the surface. Twilight at Angkor does something to the senses. The sky bruises with colors that have no names. Violet bleeding into copper, blue flickering into brilliant white as the sun sinks behind the ancient trees. I found myself standing at the rim of a hidden water reservoir, its edges scalloped by centuries of rain and the steady hand of forgotten builders. The air was heavy with moisture, fragrant with lotus and the peaty depths of still water. Every breath carried both history and a promise of new questions. The rains had abated, and as the water receded, a row of stones came into view. Previously swallowed whole by time and silt, their surfaces shimmered, catching the last light in ways that seemed unnatural. I hurried closer, boots sinking into soft mud, heart quickening as I saw that the stones were inscribed, not in the familiar sun-baked ochre of local temples, but in something that looked like silver ink. The script was precise, lines so fine and deliberate that at first I suspected a trick of sunlight or some recent intervention by modern hands. Reaching out, I touched the cool surface and felt the undeniable presence of age. Lichen crawled in slow arabesques across each glyph, suggesting that whatever silvered substance had been used to cast these marks was older than living memory. Yet no account in local legend or historic record mentioned inscriptions so precise. As I documented the lines, each curve, dot, and dash, I searched for clues to their origin. Were these marks a message, a warning, or perhaps a record of rituals forgotten by most? Villagers that I spoke with earlier believed the reservoir was home to spirits, guardians of unseen realms. They told stories of luminous shapes drifting through the night, songs that would sometimes emanate from beneath the water on mist-heavy evenings. None could recall seeing anyone inscribe the stones, and most doubted their existence entirely. Still, the script was there, gleaming in quiet defiance of doubt and damp, as if placed by a hand determined to challenge belief. I worked quickly, knowing full well how the light could change and render the messages invisible at sundown. My journal filled with sketches, glyphs that swooped like birds mid-flight, others that split into angular motifs nearer the water's edge. Some reminded me of Sanskrit lines, but none matched with certainty. It was as though the reservoir had collected the relics of many languages, distilling them into a new code, one that only the stones understood. As darkness pressed around me, the stones grew brighter, silver melting into shadow as if they belonged to another world. The reflection of the moon set the edges ablaze, and for a moment the script seemed alive, breathing, twisting, almost singing with the memory of water. I wondered if the message was meant only to exist at this hour, between light and night, between forgetting and remembrance. No one who had studied the temples at Angkor believed at first that the silver script was genuine. Epigraphers and local historians debated endlessly, some claiming the marks must have been modern, others arguing that such perfection was impossible for any ancient hand. And yet, the humidity, the lichen, the slow erosion of the reservoir's stones whispered that time itself had left its testament here. I packed my notes, the silver script burning in memory, a riddle that refused closure. Each inscription seemed to reach across centuries, tying Angkor's mysteries to myths carried on monsoon winds. Was this a story meant to be passed by water alone, hidden for generations beneath the patient silence of a reservoir? I listened for answers in the night's first chorus of frogs and insects, knowing the echo would soon carry me onward. The journey was far from over. In the forest beyond the water, stones waited, carved in circles, inscribed with repeating glyphs and patterns that shifted with the eyes of each explorer. Another layer of the ancient puzzle beckoned. Each riddle brought me closer to the heart of the mystery, to the question that tied every fragment together. What did these inscriptions truly mean, and who had left them for us to find? Beneath a tangled canopy, where the forest seems to breathe, I stumbled upon a clearing shaped not by nature alone, but by the deliberate hand of time. Stones lay scattered across rich black earth, their surfaces rounded and worn, as though cupped by centuries of rainfall and the silent passage of creatures. Every one bore an inscription, circular, repeating, etched so symmetrically that my first thought was of ancient games, labyrinths, or clocks made for gods. Morning sunlight filtered through branches, casting dappled patterns across the ground. I traced the circles, noticing how each glyph shifted with my movement, as if the script needed to be read in motion, following curves set by those who once walked here and pondered mysteries beneath these leaves. Local children sometimes gathered, drawing shapes in the dust, mimicking the stones with little understanding but a sense of play that felt sacred. The adults watched from the tree line, eyes half closed, faces caught between pride and unease. I recorded the rings in my journal, marveling at their consistency and the discipline of hand that must have guided each stone's creation. Some circles repeated glyphs, a regular pattern broken only by occasional interruptions, a new symbol, a spiral, a sudden jagged line. Was this a map, a story told in loops, or the remnants of rituals whose meaning had drifted with the seasons? Questions outnumbered answers quickly, and each pattern opened another layer of intrigue. A breeze rustled overhead, stirring scents of moss and old bark, and the sun inched higher, igniting flecks of mica in the stones. I knelt beside an isolated pillar, its inscription more weathered than most, lines only just visible. I tried to rub graphite across the surface to catch the fading details, and found that, as I worked, small insects scuttled in and out of the grooves. Life persisted in these marks, drawn to the mystery as much as I was. Mapping the circles grew more complicated than expected. The patterns did not repeat precisely from stone to stone. Instead, the sequence seemed meant to guide a traveler, drawing them deeper, steering footsteps in gentle spirals toward a center that was neither obvious nor reassuring. Legends told of travelers who lost themselves here, returning days later. Their eyes altered, their stories full of riddles. Perhaps the stones were guardians, curators of secrets, and their circular lines designed more to protect than to reveal. The stones had stories beyond my own imagination. Language experts to whom I sent photographs replied with hesitation. Some thought the inscriptions were linguistic exercises. Others suggested astronomical records, or the tracking of cycles, moon and sun, rain and drought. But none agreed on the origin. The circles refused to offer finality, instead proposing infinite entry points into a world just beyond understanding. The shadows lengthened in the glade, calling children away from their dust games, leaving the stones in silent contemplation once more. I lingered, let my eyes wander from glyph to glyph, loop to loop. Even in fading light, the circles seemed to pulse. A question formed. Was this place meant as a message for future generations, or simply as a quiet corner where those who love mysteries might gather? I packed my journal, heart full but answers light, knowing the journey was far from finished. And as the forest led me onward, across plateaus wind-scoured and cold, a monolith came into view. A stone calendar twisted inwards, no numbers, no markings that fit known cycles, only the promise of another time and order yet to be discovered. Each new inscription deepened the story, drawing me ever closer to the riddle at the heart of our memory. On a wind-swept plateau, where silence sweeps as freely as the winter gusts, I came upon a singular monolith standing against a sky polished by frost and time. There were no markers leading the way, just the subtle furrows of old animal trails and the shadow of distant peaks. The stone rose smooth and unapologetic from the frozen ground, denying nothing, proclaiming nothing, yet demanding attention from the solitary traveler who might pass. Approaching, I felt the sting of cold against my cheeks, each breath pulled deep and sharp. It would be easy to believe this monolith belonged to the land itself, a natural formation claimed by ice and wind. But the smooth, deliberate curves carved across its surface marked it as a creation, a message shaped for those patient enough to look closer. Symbols wound inwards, not in the form of numbers or letters, but in a spiral that seemed to suggest a clock or a calendar created by another order of knowing. I circled the stone, studying the unbroken rhythm of glyphs etched expertly with tools now long vanished. There was intentionality in the arrangement, a measured cadence. Unlike the predictable notches of lunar or solar calendars, these marks invited speculation. Some bore resemblance to astronomical figures, hints of stars, arcs that could trace seasons or the phases of moon and sun, but there was no sequence to anchor them, no clear way to measure time as modern minds demand. My journal quickly filled with sketches and notes. I traced each symbol, pressing my pencil with slow, measured patience, trying to decipher the intent behind their spiral dance. What story was the calendar meant to convey? Was it an invitation to watch the world with different eyes, measuring change not in days or years, but in a subtler, deeper rhythm? I pressed my hand against the stone, feeling the cold pulse through my glove, wondering if the answer had more to do with memory and ritual than counting the march of months. The wind sang through the plateau, carrying the faint howl of distant wolves and the brittle shuffle of frost-bitten grass. Standing there, surrounded by sweeping openness, I felt the awe of those who had first raised the monolith. Perhaps the builders understood time in ways that blurred the lines between measurement and mystery. Local stories hinted that the spiral was watched each solstice, villagers gathering in silence, waiting for some shift in the sky that would reveal the calendar's true meaning. As shadows grew longer, the monolith seemed to draw in the failing light, the spiral's curves swallowing dusk in silent contemplation. My thoughts drifted between certainty and wonder. Was the absence of numbers a challenge, or an act of humility before the vastness of the natural world? Sometimes, the most profound messages resist translation, asking more of the listener than mere understanding. I left the plateau with the image of the monolith burned into memory, still searching for a way to read its spiral. It lingered, a silent riddle with no resolution, only an open invitation to return and try again, either to measure what cannot be measured or to lose oneself in the act of watching. As my path led back toward the heat of the desert, I recalled tales of glass buried beneath Sahara sand, inscribed inside, not out, held together by patterns that vanished on first glance. The next fragment in the journey whispered, promising that within the endless shifting dunes, another inscription waited to unfold its enigma, offering not certainty, but the thrill of further discovery. Far within the Sahara, where the horizon blurs in waves of heat and sand, I searched for what the locals called the eye buried in the desert. Each step forward felt like wading through a memory half imagined, half true, a place where the world seemed to dissolve and reassemble with every gust of wind. The dunes crested and collapsed in silence, erasing footprints, hiding secrets until the sky cooled and evening edged in. On the third day, tired and sunburned, I found it. Nestled in the shadow of a crumbled wall, the object glinted bright and sharp, defiant against all odds. It was no ordinary shard of desert glass. The contours felt deliberate, folded as if the sand itself had plotted with intention. I brushed away the silt with slow fingers, revealing patterns deep within the glass, inscriptions not chiseled across its face, but floating inside, suspended like dreams trapped in crystal. Examining the lens under fading light, I saw swooping signs, arcs and dots that seemed to change with each angle of the sun. The markings were so fine, so impossibly intricate, that I wondered at the patience or the technology needed to craft them. Some glyphs curved like trails of distant planets. Others tightened into clusters that danced as I shifted my grip. Each line shimmered, breaking and reforming as dust swept over the surface. It was a living puzzle kept safe by the sands and the heat, waiting for a reader who would not flinch from its mystery. Legends in nearby villages claimed that such glass lenses could see the future, or reveal visions hidden from ordinary eyes. Elders told tales around fires, stories of travelers who glimpsed answers to unasked questions, only to be left with more riddles than before. I listened, recording each account, marveling at the interplay of wonder and skepticism. No one agreed whether the artifact was ancient or new, genuine or forged by a clever hand. Some said it should never be touched. Staring into the glass, I tried to decipher its message. The marks avoided the regularity of written script. They flowed, shifted, always half obscured, like water refusing to settle. I experimented with tools and light, holding the lens to the burning sky. At certain angles, the inscriptions bloomed in silver and gold, then faded into darkness. It was a cipher designed to defy easy translation, hinging on perspective, perhaps on the mood or intention of the person holding it. I wondered, who would bury such a thing, and why? Why guard a secret that cannot be plainly read in a form so fragile it might break with careless handling? I imagined forgotten travelers crossing these dunes, stumbling upon the lens as I did, tempted to take its story, but also afraid of what might be revealed. Perhaps the answers were never meant for one alone, but for those willing to return, to keep wrestling with ambiguity under ever-shifting skies. As the sun dropped low, shadows stretched across the sand, and the lens flashed a final glow. I packed my journal and left the artifact where I found it, unwilling to disturb the delicate balance between mystery and revelation. Even after leaving, its patterns danced behind my closed eyes, inviting me to revisit, to seek more as the desert changed meaning in every dusk. I moved on, guided by the quiet certainty that beyond the Sahara, marble walls and a forgotten palace waited. There, inscriptions would spell out names and stories with the clarity of ink, but whose message would remain hidden until deciphered in the right light. Each step into the unknown, the questions growing, the journey stretching, pulled me deeper into the long expedition, a search for meaning that would never truly end. Between columns of cracked white marble, I entered the fallen palace at the heart of a city lost to maps and legend. The air was thick, cool in the shadow of toppled arches, humming with small sounds, the hiss of wind between shattered tiles, the quiet drip of water finding lower ground. Every step sent echoes fluttering into chambers, where the past clung just beneath the surface, ready to reveal itself for those willing to linger. The hallways spooled forward in near-perfect silence, marble turning beneath my boots from rough to glassy with each stride. By midday, I came to a grand chamber. Light filtered in through a high, broken window, thinning to gold as it swept its way along lines of ink like veins in old skin. Here, the wall bore an inscription so strange, so impossibly crisp and modern in its geometry, that I paused, uncertain if it belonged to this age or another altogether. The letters stood in proud alignment, each stroke measured, each curve deliberate. They shimmered with a subtle luster, not quite silver, more like the surface of a quiet lake at dusk. The language was at once familiar and frustrating. Roots that hinted at Greek, at Latin, at forms borrowed from the bright dawn of written thought. And yet, reading the lines in order made no sense. Every time I followed a phrase, words seemed to rearrange themselves, vanishing at the edge of sense, only to reform, shifting like the memories of a dream, half remembered upon waking. What puzzled me most was the way the words seemed to erase parts of themselves as I moved along the chamber. I would step closer to a particular line and the tail of one letter would vanish, replaced by a new flourish in an adjacent row. The wall appeared to be writing and rewriting its own name, as though it wished to call the viewer closer, then trick them into leaving with less than they found. I worked slowly and methodically, sketching every fragment, tracing every letter, my journal filled with words that made sense only in the margin, only when I let the structure become a kind of music, notes strummed together and meant to be felt, not merely read. A faint breeze played through the holes in the roof, fluttering my papers and breathing life into the unreadable story projected before me. Some said the chamber was an oracle room, a place where voices from the past could echo new truths for those who listened without demanding answers. Others insisted the inscription was a puzzle, a lock meant for a key that had never been carved. Children from nearby settlements approached the walls with awe, fingers outstretched, retreating giggling whenever they claimed to see letters shift or vanish. I pressed on, refusing to leave until I unraveled at least a thread. My fingers traced the stones, feeling the pulse of warmth in places where sunlight pooled. The wall responded, always subtle, always slippery, revealing just enough to make me believe that in another hour, on another day, the story might finally become clear. Sometimes the act of understanding must be prolonged, savored like a secret. As evening crept over the city, the letters faded. The wall held its silence once more, refusing to offer closure. I packed my notes with a sense of invitation, not defeat, for in mystery, a deeper truth waits. Beyond the palace, the wind picked up, and I imagined the changing tide of words carrying me eastward, up to the high coastal pillars where inscriptions morphed with the coming weather, ready for the next scholar, the next dreamer to start the riddle anew. Ahead, at the edge of a wind-swept promontory, a pillar of stone waited its changing words, ready to test all that I had learned about patience, illusion, and the shape of memory. This journey was far from ending. Each inscription called forward another piece, another name to uncover. High above the surf, along a stretch of wild, unyielding coast, I found the pillar standing solitary against sky and storm. The wind pressed in from the sea, cold and insistent, rattling through seagrass and tugging at my jacket. Cloud shadows spilled over the stone, painting it with streaks of gray and streaks of molten gold whenever the sun fought through. To reach this place felt both accidental and inevitable, a destination written for those who persist past the comfort of answers. The pillar was not tall, just taller than a grown person, but it held a presence that dwarfed everything nearby. The inscriptions wrapped around it in spirals, twisting and turning as if meant to follow the movement of the clouds. I circled slowly, each step revealing a shift in the marks. At times they danced under the weight of the wind, glinting with sea spray, refusing to settle into one readable pattern. It was a scripture of nature, words and symbols meant to be changed, blurred, rewritten by the elements and the patience of time. No camera captured what I saw with my own eyes. My photographs all returned different results, the script taking on new arrangements in every shot. The letters were neither wholly geometric nor organic. Sometimes they formed sweeping lines like waves, sometimes compact shapes tight as shells. Local fishermen believed the pillar tested the determination of travelers. Some legends said that those who stayed long enough might glimpse a message crafted just for them, if only for a moment. I recorded as much as I could, not trusting just my tools, my mind running through possibilities. Could the pillar be a weathered boundary marker or a chronicle of tides and storms? Could its changeable words recall the names of those lost at sea, or the silent warning of shifting cliffs above the rocky shore? The beauty of the inscription lay in its resistance to closure. It demanded observation, held the onlooker rooted, present, unwilling to look away. As the day wore on, the weather changed in swift degrees. Gusts sculpted fog from the waves and sent it coiling around the stone. For an instant, every carved line shimmered with moisture, new symbols surfacing then vanishing, as if the pillar's true story only showed itself in the collision of light and storm. I placed my hand against the rough stone, feeling not only the chill but the pull of a deep old dream, a wish that some messages were never meant to persist unchanged, but instead to guide and to tease those seeking them to never give up. Children from the cliff town sometimes climbed here to whisper secrets to the stone, convinced that the pillar turned those words into weather that sailed out to sea. The village elders said the changing script was a test and a comfort, a way to know that every story could be rewritten, every loss one day softened by the tide. By sunset, the clouds parted for only a moment, casting a fierce orange glow across the pillar. The inscriptions brightened, their patterns multiplying in the brilliant light, daring me to grasp their meaning before night erased them again. I watched and waited, knowing full well that interpretation was not the goal, endurance was. My journal stayed open until the last trace of light. I left the pillar with a sense of both completion and invitation, understanding at last that some knowledge is meant to be discovered again and again, each time becoming something new. Perhaps, I thought, this is not a story merely of translation, but one of devotion, persistence, and awe in the face of nature's relentless tide beneath an ever-changing sky. Beyond the surf and stone, on the final night of my journey, I sensed another message was waiting, a tablet abandoned on the doorstep of a ruined shrine, holding a story unfinished, its inscription bright as tomorrow, promising a mystery the dawn might finally reveal. As the last evening of the expedition faded into quiet, a hush settled over the ruined shrine. The sky hovered between purple and deepest indigo, stars caught in an hour of uncertainty. Dust clung to my boots, pockets weighted with fragments of story, mine turning over the riddles gathered from each ancient place. It was there, in the flickering dusk, that I noticed the tablet. Balanced beside a broken threshold, it lay almost carelessly, neither hidden nor displayed, waiting as if set out for someone who had not yet arrived. My breath plumed white in the cool air as I knelt beside it. The surface caught the softest traces of firelight, gleaming as if newly carved, though the monastery around it had weathered centuries of wind and forgetting. Unlike other relics, the inscription on this tablet was neither sprawling nor worn thin. The lines curved with purpose, forming shapes that promised meaning just at the limit of comprehension. A text that seemed incomplete, questing for a final word. Traces of gold and sapphirine blue shimmered within the carvings, defying the gloom. Each glyph was sharp, edges clean and bright, yet their pattern was familiar in the way dreams are familiar, just out of reach, drawing connections to everything I had seen before. I ran my fingers across the letters, feeling the certainty of recent hands but the rhythm of older voices still humming in the stone. Was it a message composed at dawn, meant only to be deciphered at the day's close? No dust blanketed the inscription, no moss gripped the edges, as though the world itself respected its arrival and kept it untouched. I wondered who had chosen this threshold, a transition between inner sanctum and the open world, to leave such a fresh story. Did it mark a new chapter, or the end of one long in the telling? The caretaker of the site, an old woman with wary eyes, offered only a shrug when I asked. She had found the tablet at sunrise, leaning just so, as if placed by someone in a hurry, or by ritual rooted deeper than personal memory. With the last light pooling like honey on stone, I tried to translate the first line. The phrase eluded me, slipping between familiar forms and unplaceable symbols. Several glyphs seemed to echo the scripts I had traced throughout continents and centuries, as if this message wove together all the unanswered questions. I sketched what I could, ink flowing from left to right, right to left, following the script's uncertain lead. The story it began was interrupted, pausing mid-thought, daring any reader to finish the tale as their own. Night pressed closer, and the fields beyond the shrine rustled in sympathy. As I prepared to leave, a breeze caught the tablet's surface, flashing a glyph I had not noticed before. A mark shaped almost like a question, almost like an open door. I realized this last artifact did not long to be solved, but instead invited new eyes, future hands, to pick up the thread, to carry it into the next morning. There, by the crumbled stone, I understood. Some inscriptions were not meant for closure, but for continuity. They do not end with the explorer's departure, but begin anew with every fresh arrival, every retelling under shifting stars. I walked away slowly, glancing back just once, feeling the promise of unfinished stories and unexplored paths guiding me onward. And as the dark deepened, the expedition's truth revealed itself. Not in the solving, but in the seeking. Each enigma, each inscription was a door to tomorrow. The journey would always wait until someone else, maybe you, found the courage to cross the threshold and read the words, "Waiting in new light." As the embers of my final campfire flicker against the encroaching night, I find myself turning over everything the expedition has revealed. Every inscription uncovered, every ghost of a mystery resolved only in part. 15 fragments of history, each stranger than the last, have become coordinates not on any map, but within the landscape of wonder. Together, they form a mosaic of longing and invention, a journey not just into what was lost, but into the heart of our need to remember. These tablets and stones, carvings and silent witnesses are more than relics of their time. They are messages cast forward into the current, entrusted to travelers willing to kneel in the dirt and puzzle over lines meant for no single language. Each inscription, whether found beneath Himalayan stone, in Mediterranean silt, or in the sun-drenched silence of a forgotten city, reminds me how fiercely people have always wanted their stories to endure. And yet, the greatest lesson I have sensed in these encounters is not that we must solve every riddle, but that the act of searching is itself an ancient inheritance. In every epoch, people have reached beyond the visible and the explainable, carving their doubts, their faith, and their questions into the world's bones. Our hunger for meaning turns stone into scripture, marks into memory, and absence into possibility. To kneel before a vault, or stare through the lens of Sahara glass, is to join the unbroken line of those who have wondered where they stand in the greater sweep of time. Perhaps history is not so much a whisper as a promise, a secret that waits patiently, telling us that even when nothing is certain, the search is its own answer. These inscriptions teach patience and humility. They reveal that some endings remain unwritten, deliberately open, so that every new explorer can bring fresh questions and fresh eyes. In that spirit, every lost word, every unfinished glyph is an invitation. In the end, I realize I am just one more among countless seekers, and the journey itself, the yearning to understand, to connect, to leave something behind for those yet to come, is the oldest inscription of all. The past does not simply wait for us. It calls us, urging us forward, asking us to listen, to question, to follow the lines wherever they may lead.